Hi, welcome back to the show. And if you're just joining us, kind of a new concept, a grown man buys pizza on network television. And our final results are in. Second place was Original Rays, whereas the gentleman from Rays. In third place was Joe G. So that's how the betting went. Thank you. Put it right down there. Did somebody pay you for that? Have you been paid for this? No. Okay, we'll work it out. Don't you worry. Al Franken and Tom Davis, better known as Al Franken and Tom Davis, are two very funny fellows. They were part of the original writing staff of Saturday Night Live and appeared on that program many, many times. They're now performing in clubs and concerts and are working on several movie projects. Please welcome Al Franken and Tom Davis. You have your own theme song. I remember that from the show.
That's our theme song.
That's right.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Since leaving the original Saturday Night Live, you guys still living in New York City?
Yeah, I live on the Upper West Side with my wife and child.
And I live, well, I can show you, actually. It's my apartment right over there. I left the lights on.
Oh, yeah.
See? Usually, I can watch your show with binoculars. And I just get the back of your head. And you got to stop doing this. With your leg.
That's a great place, Tom. So,
waving to his girlfriend.
You're waving to his girlfriend, yeah. And you have a new daughter?
I do. It's a big event in my life. I brought a picture.
Oh, great.
Of her. Because we had it blown up because the wallet size things don't work. Can we get a close-up
right
of
over
this?
here, I believe. Right here.
I don't want any of the young boys getting any ideas. You know.
Well, I think it's wise to be safe. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
One of the things I guess people recall about your appearances on Saturday Night Live was the Al Franken decade.
Well, that's right.
How's it going?
Well, it's going good. We're doing colleges and stuff, and actually, because of the Al Franken decade, I'm more recognizable sometimes than Tom. And I've actually been thinking of changing our act to Al Franken and Friend. But Tom vetoed it, so. But it's going well. We're doing a lot of colleges.
Let me just explain something quickly here. We're a little tight on time. I understand you have someone that you have added to the act, someone you've brought with us. This would be an example of something we would see in a club or a college date from you?
Well, this is a gentleman who's come with us to a few of our college dates. He's and it's really a perfect night to have him because it is St. Patrick's Day, and a lot of people probably are drinking, celebrating tonight, having fun. But there is a tragic side to all that. As you know, every year more than 50,000 Americans are killed on our nation's streets and highways. And because of this, the people from the whiskey distilleries of America have started talking to the American people traveling around the country, talking on the subject of what to do if you're drunk and you absolutely have to drive. And here to talk on that subject is Mr. Frank Wade from the Whiskey Distilleries of America. Mr. Wade, thank you for coming on. I think it's terrific what you're doing, talking to people on this subject.
Well, thank you very much, Al. You know, we at the Whiskey Distilleries of America enjoy our products, and we want our customers to enjoy our product and to stay in good health so that they can continue enjoying our products for many wonderful years of drinking to come, and that is basically...
That's a wonderful attitude.
Our attitude, what we do.
Okay, it says you're going to talk on what to do if you're drunk and you absolutely have to drive. Now, I think most of us have been taught never to drink and drive. Isn't that right?
Well, that is the first thing which I would tell you is do not drink and drive. But suppose you're at a party out in the middle of nowhere. You've been asked to leave. Your girlfriend has passed out. What are you going to do? You're going to drive, and that is basically the point.
Okay. What advice do you have for me? I'm drunk, I'm driving. What should I do?
First of all, drive a big American car. Put something substantial in between you and whatever it is you're going to hit. Stay away from your smaller foreign cars, your Hondas, Datsuns, rice burners in general. Get a big American cage. Drive around in it.
Just curiously, what kind of car do you drive yourself, Mr. Wade?
I got a '72 Lincoln Continental that I just love. It's built like a battleship, you know. Actually, they tell me I should have been killed a couple years ago when I wrapped a Delta 88 around a tree. But I walked away with just bruises because I was so loose. Well, actually, that's a point I'd like to make about being drunk, if I may. Well, let me put it this way. If I had to be in a car crash, I'd rather be drunk.
I guess you can't fight that logic.
I'll take my word for it.
Okay, what other advice do you have for me? I'm drunk, I'm driving. What do I do?
All right, well, don't make the mistake a lot of people do when they're drunk and it's time to drive of trying to convince themselves that they're not drunk. These people just end up going too fast and they get in trouble. At least yourself, admit that you're drunk, and then don't be afraid to slow down if you can't see. And don't try to aim between the lines. Pick one line and stick with it.
Good advice. Any rules of thumb?
Mm-hmm. Do not puke and drive. You can choke to death.
Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Wade, for coming on the show. I understand you'll be speaking in Boston tomorrow?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, I'll drive there tonight, I think. You know, I hate getting up in the morning.
Well, if anyone needs a ride to Boston, do you have enough
Sure, I can put 3 or 4 in the back. Someone want to ride shotgun up in front and crack the cool ones. Could be a lot of fun.
Sounds like fun, but stick around, though, because later in the show, I know, well, David, tomorrow, actually, you're going to have Senator Ted Kennedy who's going to talk on what to do if you're driving, you're drunk, and you're aroused. So that should be pretty interesting, I think.
Franken and Davis. We'll be right back.
Fantastic.
Oh, come
It's
on.
great, isn't it?
Oh, this guy gets better and better.
Let me tell you something.
Woo.
Our next guest, a friend of ours for a long time, Paul knows him forever.
Since the early 70s.
Has been on the show many, many, many times. And 6 years ago, ran for senator from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I would love to come on your show, but I have to dedicate myself now to working for the people of Minnesota.
Of course, yes.
And I said, we absolutely respect that. And by God, he's done a tremendous job. He was reelected a couple of years ago in a, it wasn't even a close election.
Oh.
Crushed his opponent. He's beloved in the, what's the land of, let me tell you how effective. People say, has he really done a good job for Minnesota? When he was running the first time, it was land of 10,000 lakes.
Yes, I remember.
Now it's right around 12,000.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Al Franken. Great pleasure to see you, Al. Thank you, sir. How you doing, Al?
Doing very well. Thank you.
Good to have you with us.
Thanks for the kind introduction. You know, it's been 7 years since I've been on, and I just wanted to come on and before you became an eccentric recluse.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
And I've been looking forward to this moment, and I have so much admiration and respect for you. Tell us a little bit about your life. We all know you're a senator. Tell us, what about your family? Tell us about that.
Well, I am a grandfather now.
No,
I became a grandfather. I have a 22-month... I have a 22-month-old grandson named Joe. I wanted him to call me Senator because I thought that would be funny.
Yeah.
But instead this is what he calls me. And it's because starting very early, I just would go like,
oh, yeah.
And so he lives in Washington, and very often I go over to the house with my wife, but if she just comes alone, he just looks at her and goes, so I've stopped doing that now.
Yeah.
So I want Grandpa. That's
Yeah.
what I really want.
Yeah, Grandpa, yeah. Well, that will come, for heaven's sakes. Can you tell me, I'm from Indiana.
Sure.
You're from Minnesota.
Right.
Not that far apart.
No, Midwest.
Midwest, Great Lakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rust Belt. For
Right.
you guys.
What's going on with the governor of my state?
You know, this was a very bad move, I thought. And look, a lot of this is about the fact, like in 1964, we sort of settled the idea that you had to serve people, even if you were biased in some way. And really the problem here is that LGBT America, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender Americans don't have the same rights that pretty much everybody else has. So you can't discriminate against someone in employment because they're black or because they're Jewish, but you can in many states because they're LGBT, and we got to end that and do a national law saying you can't do that.
But what I don't understand, they're human beings, so why aren't they generally protected the same way all human beings are protected?
That's a very, very good question, because we have just been so backward in our thinking on this. But no, and I have a bill, for example, on students who get bullied. LGBT students get bullied more than anybody else, and their parents should have the right to call the principal and say, make sure this doesn't happen.
Sure.
So we've made a tremendous amount of progress in this area, but this was kind of a disgrace, what happened in your state. I'm sorry.
No, but here's what I want to know, because I love Indiana, and it'd probably be buried in Indiana, and I know I've embarrassed the state many, many times.
Well, and the entire country. But
well, yeah, okay. But what I want to know is, what can I do now to make the governor feel uncomfortable?
As a matter of fact, there's an open seat there. The incumbent senator, current senator there, Dan Coates, says he's not running next year. And look, when people come to me, they say, young people say, how do you become a United States Senator? And I say, well, do about 35, 40 years of comedy and then run for the Senate. And
That gets you.
It's worked every time. So I think you should run.
I'm on the right.
I would like you to be a colleague. You do a great job.
Now, I know that your mother was politically active, and she is one of the motivating factors for you pursuing
my dad
politics.
too,
Your
yeah.
mother and father. What did they tell you that was important about life that made you want to go into public service?
Actually, the civil rights movement was the beginning of it. When I was you're about a couple years older than me. It was about when I was about 11, 12, and we would watch TV during dinner on little tray tables, and we'd watch the news. And during the civil rights movement, the southern sheriffs would be sicking dogs and billy clubs and fire hoses on demonstrators, and my dad would say, no Jew can be for that. No Jew can be for that. And My dad had been a Republican all his life. He voted for Herbert Hoover. He never voted for FDR. In '64, he switched because Barry Goldwater, the Republican nominee, was against the Civil Rights Act. And so, you know, because of the '64 Civil Rights Act, we lost the entire South, basically, Democrats. But we gained my dad. But that meant that, to him, that was a huge, it was just a moral issue. And that's why this in Indiana is, you know, if they just changed it to say, in Indiana, we will not discriminate against people on the basis of their sexual orientation or gender identity, then you could have this. This is supposedly about restoration of religious freedom.
But same-sex marriage is now legal in Indiana, correct?
If it is one, it's like 37 states. It's legal, and I'm sure if it happened in Indiana, it was by court order, but probably was.
Yes, I think it was overturned and put back on the books.
Probably, and I mean, I don't. That's common now, and the Supreme Court will rule on this soon. I think we've made, you know, just a tremendous amount of progress on this issue, but the final step should really be to give LGBT people the same rights that these other groups have by virtue of race and religion and disability and those kinds of things. I think that's just the natural next step, and that's something we should do.
And, you know, absolutely. But let me just say one thing. It's a wonderful story about your father. And you say the country lost the South, but gained your father.
Yes.
And the next step also gained a United States senator. So that's pretty powerful.
Well, okay.
We'll be right back with Senator Al Franken. Senator Al Franken, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Al, you and I share a commonality in comedy and show business, but if you can, once again, describe for people the difference between what you did before you became a senator and what I continue to do today. I think this is important.
Well, I've made this distinction before on the show. We're both comedians,
right.
But I was a satirist.
Satirist.
And you are a clown. And
okay, I just want to make sure that that's on record.
Yeah, and my new job is very different. It's a very serious job, and we have a lot of challenges, and but a lot of actual opportunities. One of the challenges that I think is like a Sputnik moment, and again, I think you're about 2 years older than me. In 1950.
Why do you keep bringing that up?
To say how old you are. I don't know. I'm just saying that we're of the same era.
We're just, okay, we're the same age.
We're the same age.
Yes.
We're very close in age. So in 1957, when Sputnik went up, for example, I was 6 years old. You were 8. And wow. Now, the Soviet Union put up the first satellite, and Americans were terrified because they had nuclear weapons, and now we're ahead of us in space. And my parents, who were very influential to me, marched my brother and me into our living room in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, and sat us down and said, "You boys are going to study math and science so we can beat the Soviets." And I thought that was a lot of pressure to put on a 6-year-old. But we were very obedient sons, so we studied math and science, and damn if we were good at it. My brother was the first to go to college in our family. He went to MIT, graduated with a degree in physics, and became a photographer. And I went to a good college, graduated, and became a satirist, a comedian.
Satirist, that's right.
And, but we beat the Soviets. So you're welcome. You're welcome. But
God bless you, Senator.
But you know what? There are a lot of people involved in that, and scientists. And we increased investment in research and development in the space program, and wonderful thing. We not only beat the Soviets, but wonderful things came out of that helped our economy. I mean, telecommunications. We're going by satellite to all over the world right now, and GPS and all this stuff, and it helped our economy. And now we have another challenge, of a huge challenge, which is climate change. And it's real. Sea level's going up, and it's going up for a reason, because the Arctic is melting. And we have to, this is a big challenge. And my grandson is 40 years old. I hope I'm still around. I don't want him saying, Grandpa, what the hell were you thinking? But I see good things happening. I'm on the Energy Committee. I see the research that we're doing on things like energy storage, which is very important, because if you can store energy, that means you can use renewables. Like the wind blows more at night. And if you can store that wind energy, you can power things. And so I think of climate change as a tremendous crisis, as a challenge, but also as an opportunity. And if you look at China, it's choking on its fumes, and they know it. And so they're investing in renewables, and we need to do that. We need to do that, because that's a big market. Yeah. That's 1.2 million people. I want American technology sold to China for that.
Let me just say one thing. I agree with everything you're saying. And I've made the analogy to the space program myself. John Kennedy said we're not only beat the Russians with Sputnik, we're going to put a man on the moon. Because we were terrified of the Russians, of the Soviets. Why aren't we more afraid of putting an end to the planet than we were afraid of the Soviets?
Because it's a little slow moving, but it's absolutely the same. Before we end, and I know that you probably won't like this, I want to say something about you.
Now, wait a minute. What happened to climate change?
Climate change, it's not real.
Wait a minute.
No, I just want to get this in, and I know other people are going to say it, but I have enormous respect for you, not just as a comedian, and I don't think people remember this, but you've been the longest running late night talk show host ever. You changed comedy. You changed comedy. And I can talk about the Steve Allen influence and the Johnny influence, but you did change comedy. You did such absurd stuff, and we weren't doing. But beyond that, not only are you a great comedian, but a great broadcaster. And by that, what I mean by that is you have respect for the audience. You have respect for the audience, and you have understood what a responsibility having this show every night for an hour means. And you have been a great caretaker of this time. And there have been times like 9/11 comes to mind, but day to day, you have been a great broadcaster, and I just wanted to say that before you become a recluse. And
Thank you. It means a great deal to me. I think the world of you, Senator, and keep up the great job you're doing in Washington.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Al Franken, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back with Billy Eichner.